Have you ever wondered if the way you've been approaching intimacy throughout your life could be the reason you lost connection in your later years? You're not alone. Many men in their 60s, 70s, and beyond are struggling with this very issue, feeling frustrated, disconnected, and even ashamed of their bodies. But what if I told you that the answers you've been searching for aren't just about performance, but about understanding the deeper truths of aging, intimacy, and health? In this video, I'll reveal 5 powerful secrets that most older men wish they had known earlier about intimacy and sexual health. These truths could change the way you approach intimacy in your later years and, more importantly, help you reconnect with your body, your partner, and most importantly, yourself. If you've ever felt like your best years are behind you, or that intimacy after 60 is impossible, keep watching. We'll dive into how to stop expecting your body to perform like it did when you were 30, why your erections are a window into your heart health, and how emotional connection and intimacy is more important than ever. You'll learn why the myths you've been living with might be sabotaging your relationships and health, and how you can take control of your well-being in a way that truly honors the man you are today. Stay with me until the end because what you learn here could give you the tools to reclaim your confidence, improve your health, and find new joy in your intimate life. Trust me, this is information you won't want to miss. Let's begin. If you are not subscribed, I recommend subscribing and activating the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support means a lot to me, and if you enjoyed this video, you can help me continue spreading the valuable lessons by liking and sharing it. And let me tell you something, what you're feeling isn't weakness. It's wisdom earned through a lifetime of experience. When you were young, intimacy was effortless. It happened in the blink of an eye, without thought, without planning. You felt an impulse, and your body responded like clockwork, strong, reliable, proud. Something was thrilling, even triumphant, about that spontaneity. It made you feel powerful, desirable, and invincible. You didn't need foreplay or preparation, you were ready. Always ready. And there was a certain masculine pride in that. But here's the truth that society doesn't like to say out loud. After 60, everything changes. The rules of the game are rewritten, not as a punishment, but as a progression. And holding on to the old script, the idea that you should still be able to perform on demand, isn't just unrealistic. It's cruel. It's a quiet, unseen kind of self-abuse. And I've seen the damage it does again and again. Men walk into my office with their heads bowed low, shoulders slumped under the invisible weight of shame. They're not physically ill. They haven't broken a bone or caught a virus. But inside, they're fractured. Emotionally bruised, spiritually depleted, all because of a single moment behind closed doors that didn't go as planned. They tried to be intimate, but their body didn't respond the way they used to. And instead of showing themselves grace, they blamed themselves. They carried the sting of that moment like a scar on their soul, ashamed, embarrassed, humiliated. Some men retreat. They avoid intimacy altogether. Others pretend like nothing ever happened and continue to suffer in silence, quietly grieving the loss of their confidence, their connection, their sense of self-worth. But the most tragic part? Most of them never ask for help. They just fade emotionally, slowly withdrawing from the very relationships they once cherished. There's one man I will never forget. His name was Gerald. He was 69, full of life, vibrant, still jogging every morning, eating clean, enjoying retirement. He had recently met someone new after years of being alone. Their connection was gentle, sweet, and real. But one night, when their affection turned physical, everything changed. Gerald hadn't thought much about it. He assumed his body would remember what to do, that it would just work. But it didn't. When his body faltered, so did his confidence. Panic set in. In a moment of fear and shame, he pulled away, muttered an excuse, and never called her again. Not because he didn't like her. Not because she had done anything wrong. But because he was devastated. He sat in my office weeks later and said, with tears in his eyes, "It felt like I lost a piece of my manhood that night." This is the invisible cost so many older men pay when they don't understand that intimacy at this stage of life is not about performance. It's about presence, intention, and emotional connection. What happened to Gerald wasn't just a disappointing evening, it was a soul wound. A blow to his dignity, his masculinity, his very identity. And the ripples of that pain spread deep. Men like him begin to distance themselves from their partners. They shut down. They stop trying. And that emotional distance slowly grows into loneliness, disconnection, and eventually the belief that their best days are behind them. But here's the truth I need you to hold on to with everything you've got. Losing spontaneity is not the same as losing intimacy. What worked at 30 was fueled by hormones and youth. What works at 60, 70, or 80? That's built on wisdom, trust, tenderness, and a willingness to prepare. And that is not a downgrade, it's an evolution. It's a deeper, richer, more soulful experience. Preparing for intimacy doesn't strip away the magic. It creates space for it to flourish. It tells your heart and your partner that this moment matters. It gives you the chance to nurture your body, support your circulation, calm your mind, avoid medications that interfere, and create a peaceful, emotionally safe space where connection can thrive. Most importantly, it removes the crushing pressure to perform and allows you to simply be present, real, vulnerable, and open. But please, don't ignore this, because doing so can be dangerous, even deadly. I've known men who ended up in the emergency room, some in the morgue, because they tried to act like they were 25 again. No preparation, no thought, just ego and pride. And it cost them everything. Heart attacks, sudden drops in blood pressure, dangerous drug interactions. These are not horror stories, they're real consequences that happen when aging is ignored, when the body is pushed beyond its limit. I've spoken to grieving widows whose husbands died during intimacy because they were too proud to slow down. I've comforted families whose fathers suffered strokes after mixing enhancement pills with blood pressure medication they never disclosed to a doctor. I've watched brave men fall because no one dared to tell them that growing older requires a different kind of strength, the kind that doesn't prove, but prepares. But now you know better, and that knowledge is your turning point. When you embrace the truth that intimacy after 60 demands patience, communication, and intention, your world changes. Your relationship deepens. Your anxiety fades. Your satisfaction returns. And more importantly, you reclaim your role. Not as the man you once were, but as the man you've become. Wiser, kinder, grounded, and capable of a love that's not just physical, but profoundly emotional, spiritual, and enduring. If you've been feeling disconnected, frustrated, or weighed down by a sense of shame, I need you to understand something profound. This isn't the end of the road. It's a brand new beginning, but only if you're willing to let go of outdated expectations and embrace a smarter, safer, and far more powerful approach to intimacy. This moment, right now, can mark a shift in the way you experience connection for the rest of your life. It all starts with shedding the heavy cloak of judgment and stepping into the wisdom that comes with age. But there's something even more pressing, something even more urgent that I need to share with you. Most men focus on what's happening between the sheets, but what many fail to recognize is that their performance is sending them a critical message about their heart. And if you miss that message, the consequences could be devastating. Let me be blunt with you. Erections are not just a bedroom issue, they are a window into your heart health. If you're over 60 and you've started noticing changes in your ability to get or maintain an erection, don't just brush it off as a natural part of aging. Yes, it's true. Aging comes with its own set of challenges. But what many men fail to grasp is that a man's erection is more than just a sexual response. It's a powerful cardiovascular event. A signal, a cry for help, one of the clearest indicators of blood flow in the entire body. And when that blood flow starts to slow down, when those little arteries struggle to deliver the oxygen your body needs, something deeper is going wrong. I'll never forget David, a patient who was 67 years old, still full of life. He was married, active, and working part-time. He came to see me because he was having trouble in the bedroom. It wasn't debilitating, just not quite the same as before. Probably just getting older, huh, Doc? He said with a laugh, trying to brush it off. But I didn't laugh. I took his concerns seriously. I asked him questions, ran some tests, and something didn't sit right. I could feel there was more to the story than just age. I ordered a full cardiac workup, and 3 weeks later, David was undergoing surgery for a 90% blockage in his left anterior descending artery, known as the Widowmaker. That night, as he lay in a hospital bed, he called me. His voice was raw with shock and regret. I came in thinking I had a sex problem, he said, his voice cracking. Turns out I had a time bomb in my chest. What David didn't know, and what too many men don't realize, is that the arteries in the penis are smaller than those in the heart. They narrow and clog faster, meaning that if blood can't get through to your most intimate areas, it's a clear sign your larger arteries, those feeding your heart, brain, and vital organs, are already under threat. Erectile dysfunction is often the very first sign of cardiovascular disease. It's your body's way of begging for help before it's too late. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. I've seen it happen far too often. Men ignore the signs, mask the symptoms with over-the-counter pills, or dismiss them as just stress or aging. Meanwhile, they're walking around with high blood pressure, clogged arteries, or undiagnosed diabetes. They don't recognize the danger until it's too late, until a stroke leaves them paralyzed, until a heart attack strikes in the dead of night, until the damage is irreversible. But the damage doesn't stop with the body. The emotional toll can be just as crushing. When a man feels like he's losing control over his own body, it chips away at his self-confidence, his self-worth, and even his desire to connect. He may start to pull away from his partner. He may stop pursuing intimacy altogether, out of fear, embarrassment, or shame. And as that distance grows, so does the feeling of invisibility. He starts to believe that his best years are behind him, that the man he once was, vibrant, strong, desired, no longer exists. But here's the truth I need you to hear. It doesn't have to be that way. You have more control than you think. If you begin to treat changes in your body not as shameful signs of failure but as signals to take action, you can catch these problems early, before they escalate into something far worse. A weak erection can be your body's whisper, telling you that it needs help. Don't let that whisper turn into a scream. I urge every man I treat, if something changes in your ability to perform, do not hide it. Don't ignore it. Don't let shame silence you. Be smart. Be proactive. Go see your doctor. Run the test. Have the conversation. One honest, sometimes awkward doctor visit could mean 10 more years of health and vitality with your spouse, your loved ones, your life. This isn't about shame, it's about survival. And here's the good news. Once you address the root causes, whether it's blood flow, hormones, stress, or something else, things often get better. I've had men in their 70s tell me they feel like they're in their 40s again, not because of magic, but because they listened to their bodies and acted before it was too late. But there's something even deeper I want to talk to you about, something that goes beyond your body. There's an emotional layer to intimacy that many overlook. It's the part of intimacy that's never taught in medical school, but it's often the most healing. It lives in your emotions, in your memories, in your sense of touch. Without this emotional connection, sex can become empty, disconnected, and even painful. In the next section, we're going to explore how intimacy after 60 isn't just about physical touch. It's emotional medicine. The absence of that emotional bond might be silently harming your health in ways you never even realized. So don't go anywhere. This next piece of the puzzle could hit closer to home than you think. Secret 3. Sex isn't just physical, it's emotional medicine. I want you to think back to a time when you felt deeply connected to someone, not just in your body but in your soul, when their touch made you feel seen, understood, and truly alive. For many men, those moments are rare, and they become even rarer as we age. But the truth is, intimacy after 60 is not just about the physical. It's about your heart, your mind, your spirit. And when that emotional connection fades into silence, the consequences reach far beyond the absence of pleasure. It's not just about sex. It's about the soul of a man quietly withering in the absence of closeness. I've sat across from men in their 70s, men who once led companies, raised children, carried entire families on their shoulders. Men who commanded respect in boardrooms and built legacies out of sweat and sacrifice. Yet in my office, their voices trembled as they confessed, "I haven't felt close to anyone in years, not just sexually, emotionally." These weren't men starving for sex, they were starving for warmth, for tenderness, for the feeling of another human hand gently touching theirs, not out of obligation, but from a place of real presence. That kind of emotional starvation doesn't show up on lab results or X-rays, but it eats away at the heart. It drains the color from a man's life. And over time, it erodes both his mental and physical health in ways most doctors never bother to explain. One patient, Martin, 74, came to me not with pain in his chest or trouble in the bedroom, but with something harder to name. He felt numb. His wife had passed 5 years earlier, and since her death, he'd kept to himself, living in a house filled with memories but devoid of touch. He told me, "What's the point of intimacy at my age?" But I could see it in his eyes. He missed it. He missed the laughter in bed, the warmth of shared silence, the way she used to rest her hand on his back when they walked side by side. And that emotional distance, left unchecked, had grown into a quiet storm of depression, sleepless nights, and rising blood pressure that no medication could fix. What Martin, and countless other men, don't realize is this: intimacy is a form of emotional medicine. It's not just about the act of sex. It's about holding, hugging, being seen, and being cherished. It's about human connection. And that connection, even when expressed through something as simple as touch or shared vulnerability, triggers the release of oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin. These aren't just feel-good chemicals, they're lifelines. They regulate your mood, ease anxiety, improve your sleep, protect your heart, lower your blood pressure, and even strengthen your immune system. So when you push intimacy away, when you convince yourself that affection is for the young, or that your needs are shameful, you're not just closing the bedroom door. You're closing off a vital part of your emotional and physical well-being. And what follows is a slow unraveling. I've seen men who shut down entirely. They suppress their feelings. They stay silent even when touch is offered. They sit in a recliner for hours every day, watching television, scrolling through their phones, wondering why everything feels so hollow. And that silence? That emotional withdrawal? It comes at a steep price. Skyrocketing cortisol levels, weakened immune defenses, rapid cognitive decline, and in many cases, an early death brought on by loneliness. Yes, I've watched men age a decade in just a few years, not because of a disease, but because they were starved of love, affection, and the simple act of being held. They lived long enough to survive, but not well enough to feel alive. And let me be clear. This isn't just about being in a relationship. Some men are married but haven't shared real intimacy with their spouses in decades. Others live alone yet thrive emotionally because they maintain meaningful friendships, open conversations, and self-acceptance. The point is this: emotional intimacy is not a luxury, it is a necessity. Without it, you are running on empty. Your body may keep moving, but your spirit begins to fade. So I want to say something you may need to hear, even if it stings. If you've been feeling disconnected, if you've stopped craving touch, if you've told yourself that affection doesn't matter anymore, then you may be quietly starving your soul. And it's costing you more than you know. But here's the grace in all of this: it's not too late. You can change course. You can choose a connection. And that choice, however small it begins, is one of the most powerful health decisions you can make. Whether it's opening up to your spouse in a way you haven't in years, letting yourself feel again when someone touches your arm, or even admitting to yourself that you still want closeness, that's where healing begins. It starts with a single act of courage, a willingness to stop surviving and start truly living again. And if you're wondering, can it still happen for me after all these years? Let me assure you, it absolutely can. The most meaningful intimacy often comes after youth has faded. When masks fall, pretenses die, and what's left is raw, real, and breathtakingly human. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment, too, below to let me know that you are still here with me. But there's one invisible enemy, one destructive force that's quietly robbing older men of that beautiful connection every single day. It's not your age. It's not your body. It's something far sneakier. Something you carry in your pocket. Something you turn to in the quiet hours of the night when no one else is around. It's pornography. And it's not just a harmless distraction. It's a silent killer of confidence, satisfaction, and intimacy. Secret 4. Porn and unrealistic expectations are quietly killing senior confidence. This is the truth no one likes to talk about. But I've heard it behind closed doors from thousands of men over the past 30 years. When life slows down, when loneliness creeps in, when physical changes make intimacy more complicated, many men quietly retreat into fantasy. It's fast. It's private. It feels safe. But it's deceptive. Pornography is not neutral. It rewires your brain. It reshapes your expectations. It warps your perception of what intimacy should be. And worst of all, it often leads to emotional withdrawal from your real relationship. I'll never forget Walter, 71, a proud Navy veteran. Strong, stoic, resilient. But something had changed. He hadn't touched his wife in nearly 4 years. At first, he said they had just grown apart. But as we talked, the truth began to surface. Walter had developed a daily habit of watching adult content. What began as occasional curiosity had turned into a ritual, and slowly, without even realizing it, he began comparing what he saw on screen to the reality of his marriage. His wife's body, her pace, her expressions, they no longer excited him. He became numb, then restless, then resentful. Eventually, she stopped reaching for him altogether. Not because she didn't love him, but because she could feel the wall he'd unknowingly built between them. That's the hidden cost of pornography at an older age. It doesn't just distort what you see, it dulls what you feel. It replaces presence with performance. It trades connection for control. And in doing so, it robs men of one of the most sacred gifts of aging, the ability to love deeply, with patience, vulnerability, and grace. So if you're still here, listening, reading, reflecting, good. Because you're already doing the hard work. You're waking up. You're beginning to reclaim something far more valuable than performance. Your capacity for love, your ability to connect, your right to feel whole again. And in the next secret, we'll talk about how to rebuild that trust within yourself and with your partner, so you don't just grow older, you grow richer in love. Your brain, over time, adapts to the artificial. It becomes conditioned to respond to polished illusions, flawless bodies, choreographed scenes, endless novelty, mechanical pleasure without emotional depth. And eventually, without you even realizing it, reality begins to lose its color. That warm, beautifully imperfect human connection you once held dear, the one that made you feel alive, seen, wanted, it starts to feel dull. Sometimes even irritating. And your body? It notices. It follows the mind. Slowly, those dopamine pathways, the ones that light up when you feel love, pleasure, or anticipation, start to shift. What used to awaken you with just a gentle touch now feels muted. For some men, it becomes impossible to feel arousal without a screen in front of them. Others find themselves chasing the climax with growing frustration, unable to finish, unable to feel. For many, erections weaken, desire fades, and what hurts the most is the creeping sense that something inside is broken. But the real damage runs far deeper. It happens quietly, like a slow leak in the foundation of your soul. Confidence begins to drain. Connection fades. Self-worth erodes. And no matter how many videos you watch, no matter how much time you spend chasing that quick hit of stimulation, you're left staring into that empty silence afterward. That aching moment when the screen goes black and you're left wondering, why don't I feel anything? You start to whisper questions you're too afraid to say aloud. What's wrong with me? Why am I like this? And society tells you it's just age, just hormones, just stress. But deep down, you know that's not the whole story. You know that you've spent years feeding your mind something synthetic, something soulless, something so far removed from the raw, vulnerable beauty of real intimacy that your brain has forgotten how to respond to what's real. And that realization, that moment of truth, it can feel terrifying. I've witnessed marriages collapse, not because of cheating, not because of illness, but because of years of emotional erosion caused by digital disconnection. I've counseled men who once adored their wives but grew distant, out of anger, but because they had unknowingly trained themselves to disengage. I've seen strong kind, loving men pull away from their bodies, no longer trusting themselves to feel present without stimulation. They spiraled into guilt, into shame, into secrecy. They felt broken, isolated, ashamed, and worst of all, they thought they were alone. But let me say this with all the compassion and truth I can offer: you are not alone. Thousands, millions of men are silently battling this same struggle. Good men, honest men, men who never imagined something so private, so normal, could slowly rob them of their connection, their desire, their joy. And the good news is, there is a way back. But it starts with facing the truth. What you consume in the dark does not stay in the dark. It shapes your light. It shapes your expectations. It teaches your brain to crave constant novelty, instant gratification, and zero emotional effort. It rewires your spirit to believe that love must be flawless, that passion must be fast, that connection must come without vulnerability. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Because real intimacy isn't perfect. It's not polished or scripted or choreographed. It's alive. It's emotional. It's sometimes clumsy. It's built on trust, communication, shared breath, tender conversation, and human presence. It takes patience. It takes compassion. It takes time. And yes, at first, it may feel slower than the fast-paced, frictionless thrill of a video. But it is infinitely deeper. It lingers. It nourishes. It fills instead of empties. It brings you closer instead of isolating you. It heals you. And it reminds you of who you are beneath all the noise. Letting go of pornography, especially when it's become a years-long habit, is not easy. It takes courage. It takes honesty. It often requires support, accountability, and sometimes professional help. But I promise you, what's waiting on the other side is worth every ounce of the effort. What's waiting is a renewed sense of self. A powerful, rooted confidence that doesn't come from how you perform, but from how present you can be. A deeper bond with your partner, not based on fantasy, but on emotional truth. A return to natural arousal that feels authentic, warm, and fulfilling. A reclaimed manhood that has nothing to prove and everything to give. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to go back in time. You just have to come back to yourself. Now that we've explored these powerful truths, I want you to take a moment and reflect on what you've learned so far. Maybe you've realized how the emotional connection you've been longing for isn't just about intimacy in the bedroom, it's about reconnecting with your heart, your body, and the people who matter most. Maybe you've come to understand that the silent erosion of confidence can start in places we least expect, like the screen in front of you. Or perhaps you're just beginning to recognize the deep importance of slowing down, embracing real intimacy, and finding courage in vulnerability. What's one thing from today's video that you're going to bring into your life and start practicing? I want to hear from you. Leave a comment below sharing what stood out to you most and how you plan to put it into action. If you found value in this video, don't forget to hit that like button. Please share it with someone who might need to hear these words, and make sure you subscribe to our channel for more content that helps you live with intention, connection, and purpose. Your support means everything to us. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourself. And remember, it's never too late to reclaim the most important connection of all, the one with yourself.